So here I have a match against Tomato. Tomato is one of the strongest budget players on Global. He's been pretty well known in the PvP community at least, even since Season 1. He's consistently made it to playoffs and usually does quite well, so contrary to many of the games I have posted here, and to be honest most of the games I play, he does not go for the first ban Juggler. Instead he goes for the first ban Landius, which, well, looking at his box it really makes perfect sense. Almost everything here is single target. He of course has the well-known staples for this season, which include Elwyn and Yulia, but he even has Claret in his box, who is pretty much only run by single target players anymore, or if Claret's your waifu, I guess. So he goes into a second pick Zerda from a Juggler tank, pretty classic team comp there. Juggler plus Zerda has worked since Season 1, and it's still pretty good. So I actually ban Elwyn and Yulia over banning Claret, even though Claret obviously does get buffed by Zerda, and the main reason for that is because I'm using a Bracer Juggler. Bracer Juggler just gets completely torn apart by SP Elwyn and Yulia. Even with Blood Pack, sometimes Juggler can have a hard time tanking either one of them. Bracer, of course, is extra good when you're fighting against flyers and the like, because the majority of them are using Ragnarok, especially if it's a single target box like this. Of course, Claret also has her 3-cost skill now, which is nearly as devastating as Holy Justice from Yulia. Claret's 3-cost is yet another reason a lot of people are switching over to Blood Pact. In this case, though, this is the first time I'm going to be fielding my Rosenseal. So this is in the third week of Season 6, so there is a couple noteworthy things to be aware of starting on this week. First, this is the week where if you are like me and you only pulls one copy of Rosenseal, this is the week that she hits 4 stars. And even though Rosenseal is one of those very rare characters who is usable even at 3 stars, I think 4 stars is where she truly starts becoming really crazy. And of course she only gets better from there. But it's also the week that the Crystal Stinger Dagger is first available. So Zerda getting picked this early is actually really scary. It does make you wonder if they are carrying the Crystal Dagger. A Zerda with the Crystal Dagger and really good enchants can actually one-shot a Juggler. It's not something you should bank on all the time, but that's just something that is possible, just to give you an idea of how crazy the Crystal Dagger can be. So back to the match, you can see that I'm actually just YOLO jumping in with Juggler. I should note that the move that Tomato makes right after this actually took him a really long time to do, because he probably saw what it is I was trying to do, and he probably decided to just gamble on it. I'm guessing he actually surmised that my goal was to just jump in immediately with Ares and go for the Juggler kill. Now, the reason I do this so brazenly is because of how Master of Ice interacts with other jugglers. So, Master of Ice inflicts a water debuff on the enemies it hits, and this debuff actually overwrites the water buff that Juggler can give himself. Now, when you're first inflicted with this debuff, it really doesn't make a difference for Juggler himself, because of course, whether it's a buff or a debuff, either way you're in water, so you do get the defense bonus. In fact, it means that if you're debuffed with Master of Ice, you're actually immune to getting it dispelled from Elwyn Sword Soul or something. So sometimes you could actually sort of use it to your advantage. But in this case, what it is was that I was banking on him casting Heal on his Juggler. What that does do is dispel the water off of his Juggler. This means in the right situation you can use Juggler's 3-cost or Master of Ice to force a heal on an opponent's Juggler. And because the heal removes their water, you can then follow up with some kind of tank buster, which is exactly what I did in this case. Now, if you'll go back, you'll actually notice that Tomato's positioning was mostly very good. You'll notice that he lined up most of his units on the river anyway, so even if I attacked most of his guarded units, he would still be in water, even without a water buff or debuff. But the one mistake he made, of course, was placing Zerda forward on the grass. And since Liana only dispelled Juggler's water and not his physical guard skill, I was able to attack Zerda and make Juggler guard him, which means he was now off of water and Ares could get the kill. I'm usually someone who doesn't really like to use Ares to tank bust because honestly he's disappointed me many times with single target tank busting situations. By the way, speaking of disappointments, Tomato's Zerda disappoints him here because he fails to crit my Ares, even though there's no Landius aura or anything, so that's a big rip. But yeah, like I was saying, Ares' tank busting is very unreliable in my opinion because he needs to rely on a crit from Noble Charge and his crit rate is very shaky. But luckily for me, it worked out in this case. But hopefully you at least got something out of the whole Triton Master of Ice interaction thing. This can be used to your advantage with any kind of tank buster, so maybe try it out sometime.